Halo, nama saya Wafat Aftazani, General Manager untuk Indonesia di Tools for Humanity, company yang membangun Project World. Project World ini teman-teman adalah sebuah sistem yang bisa membantu membedakan antara manusia dengan AI dan bots. Dan saya yakin buat teman-teman di Indonesia yang sering banget war tiket konser, yang sering banget kalah sama calo, terus mungkin tahu teman-temannya atau keluarganya pernah di-scam sama orang-orang di WhatsApp yang pura-pura jadi keluarga misalnya. World ID yang ada di dalam World App bisa membantu teman-teman semua untuk memastikan bahwa yang berinteraksi dengan kita di dunia online adalah manusia asli, bukan AI dan juga bukan bots. Dan bukan hanya itu, World App yang bisa digunakan setelah teman-teman memverifikasi World ID itu juga terdiri dari banyak mini apps dan berbagai layanan online yang bisa teman-teman gunakan, mulai dari pendidikan, kemudian games, sampai bisa bikin community polls, sampai donasi dan lain-lain. Dan yang pasti semua mini apps yang ada di dalam World App berarti semua usernya adalah verified human atau manusia asli, bukan bot, bukan AI, apalagi bukan jin. Nah, jadi pastiin teman-teman download World App di Play Store atau di App Store dan juga bisa cek lokasi verifikasi di orb terdekat. Terima kasih.
So I'm Adrian, visiting for a bit here. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. I work on security primarily for Tools for Humanity, making sure that we build a network that is as secure and private as it can possibly be. Our goal, of course, is to make it available to everyone in the world and help improve access to identity and finance on the internet for all humans.
Okay. What personal experiences shape your perspective on digital security and identity?
So I've worked at a bunch of different places. I worked on Android as an early member of the team building security. And for me, probably one of the most important things was making security accessible. It used to be that to get security, you'd have to buy a security product, you'd have to work with pretty expensive tools. And one of our goals on Android was to make security accessible to everybody. And that's what really excited me about Tools for Humanity and the World Project as well, is it was taking that same idea of making security and privacy available and going even further and making it possible for everybody in the world to have some of those most important basic things that they needed on the internet.
Internet and technology is such a thing now, right?
Oh yeah.
And how has your view on privacy evolved throughout your career?
Privacy is a complicated topic. I think most people believe that they should be able to control information about themselves. Over time, we've seen that people spend more and more time online, and every site that you interact with needs some amount of information about you. They might need that information to be able to provide the service, but an increasing number of sites need that information in order basically to protect themselves. They use information about the people using those services, certainly to deliver advertisement, certainly to create value, but also to identify people who are fraudulent, identify accounts that are fake, people who are pretending to be somebody that they're not. And so all of this information is being pulled in. And when you start thinking about that at the scale of billions of users on some of the most popular sites, it's an amazingly large amount of data. And that made me realize that we need to change some of the really basic fundamental elements about how those sites work. And that's part of what was an attraction for Tools for Humanity as well, was that privacy was the first principle. It was, how can you use those sites and not need to provide a bunch of information about yourself to do so safely?
Okay, let's go deep dive to the Tools for Humanity.
Yep.
If someone asks you, what is Tools for Humanity at a dinner party, how could you explain it in one sentence? Make it simple.
Make it simple. Most of the networks that we use were built for something other than people. The internet was built for computers. Financial networks were built for money. But at this point, people are what use them. And Tools for Humanity is trying to make tools to be able to use all of those networks and have those work for us rather than against us.
Okay, so you and your team at TFH are trying to solve the problem, but what problem is TFH is trying to solve that the world hasn't been able to figure out yet?
Yeah, it's interesting. As soon as a lot of people started to come online, we realized that this problem existed. We invented things like CAPTCHAs. We invented things like using a challenge response, using your SMS on your phone as a way to try to determine whether somebody was a real person or not. And that kind of worked. It was heavy, it was slow, it was annoying, but it kind of worked. At this point, it doesn't work anymore. At this point, all of those tools fail because the AI is more sophisticated. And so the core problem is how to easily confirm that what you're interacting with is a person. And in the real world, it's simple, right? I interact, I can see that you're a person, you're in 3 dimensions, I see you moving around, etc. But any of the basic clues that you might look for on the internet can be faked, right? Video can be faked, audio can be faked, information can be faked. And in fact, at this point, automation and AI do that better than people. And so that's the challenge, is how do we take the intuitive idea that you have in the real world and have that similar, simple understanding that this is a real person that I'm interacting with online.
Okay, then guide us to understand how does the tech works. What's the biggest misconception people have about the TFH?
Most people, when they think about identity on the internet, are used to a single site holding all the data about them. It could be a big social network or some other big service that you use. And if you want to use that identity to log into another site, first you had to have created an account and put all kinds of data in it. And second, that account can see all of the other services that you're using. And that's not at all how World works. The way that World works, World doesn't hold any data, literally no data about the user at all. It's held by the user. And World as a protocol doesn't see any of the sites that you use. So it's completely different from how all other identity protocols work, because our goal was to have it be as private as possible. Our goal was to allow users to hold their own information. And our goal was to protect those users, both from World having the data, but also from the site needing to hold the data. And so very, very different from how other technologies are built.
Okay, as I want to jump into the World ID, you have mentioned it
Yep.
before. Let's start simple. What exactly is World ID and why should anyone care about it?
World ID is a unique ID. Each person can hold one and only one. We use an iris code, which is an image of the face and the eyes and the iris, which is part of your eye. Create a numeric code from that and then confirm that that person is only registered once. And the iris is the only part of the body, the only part of the human that is both private, you don't use it on a regular basis, and is able to differentiate all 8 billion humans. So fingerprints don't have enough data in them. You actually start to have collisions where 2 people have the same fingerprints well before you would have that with iris codes. Similarly, with face, you have twins and other situations where you have people that look effectively identical to any technology. And so we use the iris code to create uniqueness. And then that ID can be used to access sites that want to have their services available only to unique humans.
So with a World ID, what kind of activity become possible that wasn't before? Can you give us some real world example?
Yeah, so the World app is a super app. There are a number of applications that have been built, games, donation applications, where those developers wanted to have their experience only available to verified humans. And so those are experiences that just don't exist anywhere else in the world. The only place that you can get to them is in the context of World and the World app. There are a lot of other applications that are available outside, but that benefit from using World. We've built extensions to Shopify, to Discord. Those are examples where within a larger social environment, there's a desire for a subset of that environment to only be available to verified humans. And so they can have a better experience because you know that who you're interacting with is real people.
Okay, if I want to download the app, how much do I need to pay?
The app is free, so you don't need to pay anything. The service in general is built on an open protocol. Our goal is to make it available to everybody in the world and able to be used as, and so there's no need to pay in order to have the app.
Okay, so there's a word app, there's a token, there's the orb.
Yep.
How do these products fit together? Is there a big picture people are missing?
I don't know if they're missing it, but there is definitely a big picture. So the way I think about it, the orb is a camera. It can tell you, is this a human? If it is a human, the human can use their iris code and can determine that they are a unique human, which gives them a world ID and the ability to interact with a bunch of different services, mini apps. From that, there's an economy that can be created amongst those mini apps. The token is one way that transactions can happen, and so that interaction can happen. Underneath all of this, there's a need to have a reliable record of those transactions. So blockchain is involved. And there's also a need to have a great deal of privacy. And so there are a number of technologies that we've built specifically to make sure that as users are using applications, information doesn't need to go to those applications unless the user has decided they want to provide it. And those are the core components.
Let's be real here. We live in an age of distrust. Why should people trust TFH and World Up to be specific?
Yeah, from the very beginning, we focused on making our technology as open as possible. We've open sourced the code that runs on the orb. We're open sourcing the core protocol. And that's designed to let anybody in the world look at the technology, understand how the technology works. And ultimately, what they'll see is that they don't need to trust TFH. Our goal is to have the protocol be able to run in a decentralized way by people other than the WorldCoin Foundation and other than Tools for Humanity. So we're really designing it so that anybody in the world should be able to use the protocol, and that's the basis for the trust, is the way that it's been built in an open, transparent manner.
Talking about privacy, technology, innovation, internet, and everything I have mentioned before, have you ever had a moment where you thought, are we doing the right thing? How did you navigate that?
From the very beginning, our goal has been, frankly, very straightforward, very clear. It's about making it possible for everybody in the world to prove their humanity, using that to enhance the privacy of all of the people in the world as they're interacting with services, making it possible for developers to pay for services that are otherwise not profitable because they know that real humans are using them, the quality of the experiences. So all of those things are aligned. And what's interesting is they're aligned together in a way that's helpful for users, for developers, for all of the parties, but they're in conflict with existing other services that rely on sharing of data and access to data. And so I think there wasn't an opportunity for those other services to sort of pivot and build something like this. But once we could see it, what would keep us up at night is if we weren't moving quickly, if we weren't building this as fast as we could and getting it to scale as quickly as possible. And so, no, there's nothing, and there's no moment where I've said, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. It's very, very clear that not only do we need to be doing it, but that there's not really anybody else that can do it.
You guys want to do it worldwide.
Yep.
What strategic plan did you guys use to make everybody use the Word app?
Yeah. So most products focus on a specific problem for a small set of people and then try to tune the product to work for that specific small set of people. When we began building World, we realized that the benefit of the network required it to get to scale. The benefit required there to be lots of users, lots of developers, lots of connections around the world. And so starting small and focusing on a single problem wouldn't work. And so one of the things that we did was launch in lots of countries simultaneously, do our testing in lots of countries simultaneously, target different demographics of people around the world simultaneously at the very beginning of the product. And that's sort of the opposite of the playbook that most small companies would have. But our ambition was always to go global. And we knew that we would have to get there. And so we wanted to get feedback from users around the world from the very beginning. And that's how we've approached it.
So far, how it goes?
It's been going really well. We became public. We launched in July 2023, so about a year and a half ago. At this point, we're operating in several dozen countries, over 40 countries. We have over 23 million user accounts that have been created and over 11.5 million users that have gone to an Orban verified. We're constantly expanding the number of places where the application's available. Actually, this week, we're launching in Indonesia. We're going to have about 10 locations in Jakarta in just a couple days, and really excited to bring the services here and begin to provide the benefit. You know, we see Indonesia as a country that has a young, vigorous population, incredibly large community of people who are using social media and interacting, but also a community of people who have seen some of the risks associated with AI and how it's accelerating online. And so there's really a tight connection between the benefits that we can provide and the growth opportunity here. So we're really excited to be launching here.
In your opinion, what's the real risk if we don't solve the identity verification problem globally?
So there's a lot of different risks. There's some that are like personal. I think people waste a lot of time if they're not able to trust the services they're interacting with. We've just begun to see some that are more larger scale. We see what's called astroturfing, or large scale campaigns to manipulate public sentiment on social networks. So that's worse than wasting time, right? That's beginning to manipulate, and that can have an effect on democracies. That can have an effect on how we trust the internet. Ultimately, I think technology is only useful if we trust it. And we're at this very important inflection point when the internet and with computers in general, where it's not clear whether we should continue to trust them. And I think that's potentially really, really destructive. Given how much time we spend using these devices, given how much we've invested in the internet, the idea that we could stop trusting it, I think would be catastrophic. Sounds extreme, but I think it would be really, really disruptive. And so that, I think, is what we're trying to avoid, is how do we weave trust in people? And the way that starts is by knowing who are people on the internet.
So if this technology done it right, what will happen? What's gonna be changed?
I think a lot of the services that we use right now become more profitable because the amount of time and energy that they spend trying to prevent abuse and fraud goes down. The cost going into maintaining excess of inventory, the cost going into detecting abuse and removing it goes down. So that alone stimulates more investment and more productivity. I think user trust in those services also goes up. The amount of time that you spend thinking that content can't be trusted goes down. The types of interactions that you have in those social environments goes up. Your ability to get concert tickets because you're not fighting with bots and scalpers becomes more efficient. Your ability to participate in giveaways or limited edition products goes up. The profitability of those goes up. And those are all things just with the existing set of services. In addition to that, I think we'll begin to see new types of capabilities that will get built. And so I think there's a lot there that is pretty exciting as well.
So how do you see Word App evolving in the next 5 years?
Scale, I think, is number one. I think right now, 11 million verified people is a lot until you walk around in Jakarta and you realize that's not even one Jakarta, much less, a small fraction of the greater Indonesia. Our goal is to get into the hundreds of millions over the next coming years, and we think into billions of users in the timeline that you're talking about. So that's probably the biggest change, is how many users are on the network and how they're connected. And I think that ends up beginning to stimulate activity on a local basis, which is pretty exciting. Once you have a community of people who have interacted and are able to connect to one another, then that can strengthen those connections. It stimulates the ability to have more and more applications as well. So I think scale is really about enabling the network to become more and more powerful.
Okay. Adrian, tell me, what's one wild prediction you have about the future of technology that most people wouldn't believe in?
I get this question a lot in security. And I think the entire security space is going to go away. We've learned a lot about what privacy means. We've learned a lot about what security means. And historically, those are things that we add on to a product. But I think as we become more sophisticated, we pull them into the core platforms. And so I think a lot of our concerns related to security and privacy are a result of basically shipping too early. And I think the need to invest in those in a dedicated way is going to go away, which is very contrarian for people who believe, we're going to spend more and more and more on security and privacy. I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think they're just going to become core parts of all of our platforms, and then we won't have to worry about them anymore.
Okay. If the FH achieves everything it set out to do, what kind of world are we living in?
We'll be living in one where you can trust the interactions that you have online are with real people. We'll be living in a world where if you think something is a deep fake, you'll be able to find out where it came from and who you're interacting with, and be able to gain trust whether it is or isn't. It could be a deep fake and you'll know, or it might not be, and you'll know that as well. We're, as a technology company, really excited about AI. I know a lot of what we've talked about is more on the dark side, but I think there are very exciting advancements that are being made in how AI can be used to help humans. Things like using agents to perform actions on your behalf. But that only works if everybody can tell when they're interacting with an agent and when they're interacting with a person. So I think one of the really exciting things is having this proof of humanity is a foundational element for a world in which AI can be most useful for humans. And humans can know when they're interacting with humans, and humans can know when they're interacting with AI. And those can coexist in a peaceful way, in a productive way. And so I think that's the exciting future that we're looking forward to.
Adrian, I have 5 last questions. I need you to answer it quickly.
Okay. I'm not good at that, but I'll try.
Ready?
Okay.
First one, is privacy dead?
No, it's just starting to be a reality.
Okay. Second, humans or algorithm? Who is winning and why?
Humans will win because ultimately we're the ones that control the algorithms.
Next, one word to describe TFH's biggest challenge?
Scale.
What's the most underrated tech innovation no one is talking about?
Secure boot.
Okay, last but not least, would you scan your iris for a free coffee? Why or why not?
Sure. I think depends on who's doing the scanning. I know we've worked really, really hard to make sure that is as private as possible and aren't keeping the data. I also know there's lots of implementations that don't do that. So I wouldn't have a second thought about it doing with our technology.
Okay, Adrian, and that's wrap our interview, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maybe last but not least, do you want to tell us something that I don't ask you?
There's lots of reasons. I think the benefit that each person gets is a little bit different. And so there's not a single, simple, pithy answer. I think if you want to be able to use a dating app and know that your account is one that's trustworthy, you should sign up. If you want to use social network and have your account be considered more trustworthy, then you could sign up. If you want to play games and know that you're not competing against bots and that you're competing against real humans, then that's another reason to sign up. If you want a world in which scalpers aren't the only ones that have access to concert tickets, and that scalpers aren't the only ones that have access to giveaways and limited goods, that's a reason to sign up. If you're an application developer and you want to create experiences that are more trustworthy for your users, that's a reason that you should sign up as a developer and make it possible. So there's a ton of different reasons, but ultimately I think it comes down to, if you can imagine a world where your interactions on the internet are more trustworthy and you want to invest in that world and make that possible, then you should sign up.